And welcome back. Well, Publishers Weekly calls this a go-to book for those who wish to understand how to lead others. The woman who wrote it is one of the first female news directors in the country. She's also the woman who moved Molly from Scranton, Pennsylvania to right here in Milwaukee and hired her as a reporter. Was that one of your first jobs?
Yeah, but I was so glad to leave Scranton. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, she hired,
she saved me.
She hired a lot of pretty talented people and led them in the news area, so I don't know if you should feel that special.
Yeah, I know I feel special. Come on now. Okay, so here's the book we want to tell you about. Jill Geisler is here to talk about it. She's a senior faculty member at the respected Poynter Institute and author, too, which is fantastic. So nice to have you here.
Pretty exciting, young ladies.
Yeah. You saved me from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I cried every night on the phone to my mom.
She interviewed very well. We were very impressed with her, and I've never regretted the hire.
Thank you. I like being here in Milwaukee. I was reading your book. I mean, I always knew this working for you, but you were 27 in 1978 when you were a reporter, hired as a news director in a major news market with no management experience except a summer job when you managed a candy store.
That's right.
In high school.
So it was truly a risk on the part of the people at my television station who saw something, as managers often do. You see something and you say, let's take a risk on that person.
Yeah.
How did it feel to be a pioneer as a female in the industry? And is that, did you learn how to be a boss by doing? Because I think a lot of people, they want to read about it, they want to become good by learning, but is it by learning or is it by doing?
It's both. I teach managers all around the world now. This morning I just received through Facebook a picture of someone in Aarhus in Denmark holding up a copy of the book. He's an editor at the Jyllands-Posten, and he says, I've got my copy. I teach managers all around the country. And the reason I wrote the book is that A, I can teach from my mistakes that I made as I was learning, but I also know that a combination of learning by doing, learning from your mistakes, but having someone guide and mentor you and talk to you about the mistakes to keep you from making them. That's the reason I wrote the book.
And I love how you mentioned how important coaching is, and I want to get to that in a second. But first, you know, a good reporter doesn't necessarily make a good news director. No. And like a great salesperson is not always a great sales manager. So I think, you know, you bring up mistakes. What are some bad, can you give one example of a bad boss behavior, an example of a good boss behavior?
Well, a bad boss behavior, A, is continuing to do your old job and micromanaging the people. And you want to do your old job because you were good at it. You got promoted. And so you keep your hands in where other people ought to be doing that work. And you're hypercritical and you expect them to do it just the way you did it because it worked for you. Instead of learning what good bosses know and what great bosses know is how to bring the best out of people as individuals and not treating them all alike, which is a myth that you have to treat everyone the same. You have to know your people well enough to know how they're motivated, how they do their best work, because the most important thing a boss does is help someone else do his or her best work.
Yeah. What's the biggest mistake you learned from yourself personally?
Oh, I was a fixer. Molly, you know this. I could take anyone's story out of their hands and rewrite it for them and hand it back and say, there, isn't it better?
Yeah. You're a great writer, though.
But that can feel undermining to an employee.
Absolutely. And who's going to tell the boss, well, I would have rather had it a different way. And so I had to learn how to be a coach, which is much more work. You have to learn how to help someone else raise their performance by knowing how to describe what they're doing. It's not like saying, well, I don't know what's wrong, but I just don't like it. You have to be able to tell someone how to build on what they already know. So that takes more skill than just doing it for them.
One of the most fascinating things for me in reading your book was reading the reports you would get from employees about their bosses. And sometimes bosses would be shocked at how much employees like them. Like there was the reporter who said about her editor, if I could get her to be the editor of my life, I'd be a better person. I mean, what a compliment.
We require 360 feedback in all the seminars that I do for the Poynter Institute and around the world. And bosses are surprised at the degree to which they're held in high regard and the small things that people remember, the small kindnesses or the big kindnesses, or the kinds of things they never forget.
Like, and never forgive, maybe?
Well, like never forgive, like the boss who took credit for my work, or the boss who misled me, or the boss who's one person around the staff and then another person when the higher-ups are around, those kinds of things that really ruin your credibility as a leader.
Well, and sometimes it's not even so intentional. You talk a lot about having an evil twin, where with bosses in particular, it's very easy to have your intentions misinterpreted.
Absolutely.
Is there a way that somebody can self-monitor themselves? Is it that you just ask employees, how do you view me? Or how do you actually do that as a boss? How do you get that feedback to know how they see you?
You know, you have to be accessible enough that people can do, as I recall Molly doing one time, coming in and saying, I have a problem with something that you just said. And having that kind of openness that you'll listen to people, and then the ability, talk about what people don't forget. They don't forget if you apologize. If a boss actually apologizes to you for an error, especially if that person apologizes in front of the same group of people in which they may have said something or done something wrong, that shows real leadership. It doesn't show that you're a bad boss. It doesn't show that you're weak.
Powerful.
I think it's a great book to read whether you're an employee or a boss, because I always think you kind of have to manage your boss if you're smart. And you have a lot of great tips. We're going to talk about your signing, but just really quickly, what's next for you? Will you write another book?
Well, this is, you've had children. You know what it's like, postpartum. It's like, oh, let me hold this one for a while.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I love writing, and I do a column for the Poynter Institute, and I do a podcast, which is what led to this. And we've had about between 7 and 8 million downloads on iTunes U of the Great Bosses podcast, which is what led to the book. So I'm really busy, and I'll probably keep writing.
Sounds good. Jill,
People can come and meet you at your book signing. It's going on July 24th. It's at 6:30 at the Grafton Public Library, which is right on 11th Avenue. You can also get the book at whatgreatbossesknow.com and follow all of Jill's writings there. Thanks so much for being here, Jill.
It's great to have you.
see you.
Thanks for saving me from Scranton.
Proud I hired you.
Yeah, thank you.